Shannah Game is a certified financial planner, a certified trauma of money specialist, and the fearless voice behind Everyone's Talking Money podcast, a New York Times top 4 money podcast with over 26 million downloads. Wow. Shannah is on a mission to help people break free from the hidden money traumas that are holding them back, and she does this with a bold, no BS approach. Her brand new book, out this week, is Unraveling Your Relationship with Money. Discover and ditch your money trauma so you can live an abundant life. Now, this book goes beyond the numbers and gets down to the deep-rooted emotions that drive your financial decisions. Shannah's work empowers women to heal their money relationships, take control, and build unapologetic wealth on their own terms. Hello, Shannah, and welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. I mean, could you just wake me up every morning running
Right?
over my bio? That would be fantastic.
Right? I mean, well, that's what we all need to feel better about ourselves, is someone saying, oh my God, you're so amazing. But you are amazing. And you have got this brand new book that is just coming out this week. That is super exciting. But before we dive into that, I want to start by talking about money trauma because I don't think that everyone has heard of the concept of money trauma. We know what trauma is, but what is money trauma?
Well, that's a very good question. And it is a relatively new field that thankfully people are really diving into because I believe that 95% of our money decisions that we make or don't make, they come from an emotional standpoint.
Oh, yes.
So if we think about that, the trauma piece is all of the baggage. It's all of the fear, the shame, the mistakes, the guilt, all of the gunk that we carry with us, either from childhood or as an adult, that creates a traumatic response to money. So if you've ever had a situation where maybe you forgot to pay a bill and you're just panicked of what this is going to mean, or maybe you've been in a relationship where somebody was controlling financially, that is a source of trauma. Maybe you were laid off from a job that creates a traumatic response. So when we talk about trauma, typically it's a somatic experience that we're having, something in our body, right, that we're feeling. Maybe our shoulders are getting tight, or our heart is racing, or we're feeling a little panicky. But we don't tend to diagnose that that's what's happening to us around money, right? So most of us live in a very anxiety driven, stressful way around money. And most of that is because of these traumatic responses that we have. And they could be big things, but they could also be tiny, tiny things. It could be maybe we were raised in a family who taught us that money was the source of all evil. So as women, we feel like we can't earn money. We can't earn money because it's the source of all evil. That is a traumatic response. So there are lots of different ways that this shows up, but it's a very real occurrence that happens for almost every single human being.
Okay, I'm going to be a little bit vulnerable and talk about my personal situation. I grew up in a very modest household. We didn't have a lot, but we had enough. My mom clipped coupons, did creative stuff like, wouldn't you know it, Santa this year brought pajamas and toothbrushes, that type of stuff, right? And money was tight for us. But I grew up knowing that we were always going to have enough and that my mom was good at budgeting and all these kinds of things. However, what I feel like I carry into my adulthood is I do well at my job, but no matter how much money I make or how much is in the bank, I always worry I won't have enough. Is that a trauma response?
That is 1,000% a trauma response. And Tracy, I
It's
have to tell you,
illogical.
yeah, but you are in the absolute norm. I work with women for the last 20 years, coaching them around trauma and the emotions around money. And every single woman, I kid you not, the first thing they say to me is, I feel like I'll never have enough. There will never be enough money. And so it's so fascinating to me that particularly us as women carry this belief with us. And if we look back at our previous generations of women before us, right? They couldn't open credit cards. They couldn't get a bank account. They couldn't get
Right.
a mortgage without a husband. That is extreme money trauma that is passed down generationally to us that we're just kind of automatically born with as women, let alone if we go through anything in life, which we all do. So, yeah, that's a very real source of financial trauma, and I love that you share that story because I feel like that's something that most women can relate to, but we don't talk about it.
Right, right. I think so if women generally have a tendency to feel worried that they'll never have enough money, when they're going through divorce, it is amplified 10 times, 100 times because finances are so terrible in almost all divorces.
I love that you say that because I went through a divorce, about, 13, 14 years ago, and I knew that I needed to get divorced for many years, and I didn't do it because I knew that financially it was going to be a train wreck. And I was already a money expert and I understood how everything worked. And sure enough, I detail this in great detail in my book, but I left my house with my car that had a very hefty payment on it and a blue suitcase full of my stuff, and that was it. That's all I walked away with to my name. And yeah, finances were used as a weapon, and it was humiliating, hard. I had nothing to my name, and in fact, I had a ton of debt, and here I was a money expert trying to help other people, and there was so much shame. Talk about money trauma. There was so much shame I went through thinking, "Who am I to give money advice?" Until I realized, "Wait, I'm actually the right person." Because I've been through some stuff, and I know the reality of just how deeply embedded our emotions and feelings around money are, and how much they keep us stuck. So yeah, that's a very short summary of a very bad, terrible time in my life.
Right. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think that it's so important for divorcing women to hear other stories and to see that it is possible to get through it and rise above and all this stuff. And sometimes it doesn't even seem like that's possible when you're in the thick of it. It's like, oh yes, another encouraging story. Oh great. But you can get through this. Now, let me ask you, how is someone going to know if they have money traumas or identify what those are?
I think the first step is really having some sort of awareness around how you interact with money. So again, if you're opening your bank online app and you're starting to feel heart palpitations or you're getting a little sweaty or you just feel a little uneasy, that is a sign that hey, something it's like a warning signal like we have on our cars, right? Something's going on. Or if let's say you're in a relationship and you're having a conversation and the topic of money comes up and immediately you feel like a fight or flight response. Like, I got to get out of here or I got to have an argument about this. That's usually an indication that there's some sort of trauma. Another thing is just complete avoidance. So, not wanting to take the steps, not wanting to look at your bank account, those are definitely signs of trauma. So, I would say just the first step is having some sort of awareness of when you interact with money in any way, whether it's going out and spending money or having conversations or you looking at your bank app. Notice the sensations that's going on in your body. Notice what's happening to you. And if you feel some sort of unease, some sort of anxiety, that is usually a sign that there is something that is traumatic that is going on for you in the background.
Okay, but then what do you do?
Yeah, that's the 50 million
Right.
dollar question,
S
right? What do you
Solve
do?
our problems in about 25 minutes, Shauna.
I would love to. So when you notice that comes up, I think the first thing you do is stop and ask yourself, why am I nervous right now? What is going on? Who is around me? What is the situation? Why is this happening? And usually we have to go back quite a bit to when we were a kid, just like the story you shared. So most of our money habits are set by the time we're age 7, right? So we got to go way back and say, okay, was there something that I learned or witnessed or didn't learn or didn't witness from my childhood that actually is like, it's like stuck, right? It's stuck in me and it's influencing the decisions that I'm making or not making around money. Or did I just go through an event? Did I go through an divorce? Did I go through getting laid off from my job or my business failing? Or did I just have an argument with a family member or my spouse or my loved one about money? okay, what is going on? Like, we have to understand the narrative. So it takes pausing and figuring out what is going on. Why is this happening? And it usually, involves some layers of like peeling the onion skin back. I'm giving you a very short sort of summation of it. But from that point, then, it's flipping the script a bit. So your trauma you were talking about was from this narrative of never having enough, which a lot of women have. And so the flip of that is, okay, I need to actually define what is enough. What does enough look like in this process of divorce? Or what does enough look like when I get out of this process and I'm me 2.0? What is enough? Because when we can start defining what some of these definitions are for ourselves, we can start pulling ourselves out from that trauma response and putting us in a different position to interact with money in a different way that's a healthier perspective.
But what if you're one of the many women who is literally just getting by during and after the divorce and maybe not really even getting by? Every month, a little extra is going on the credit card to make the ends meet, and she is just digging herself a deeper hole financially. How are you going to even try to tackle your money trauma and build that better financial future?
Well, I think this is where we really have to come back to money being primarily an emotional response. The most money experts tell you what to do. I like to help you figure out why you're not doing what you want to do, right? And that usually requires like let's get in and let's deal with the emotions. And part of that is, look, if you're just getting by, and I've been there. I was through this process myself. You gotta give yourself some grace, and I know that sounds easier said than done, but yeah, you might have to go to the credit cards. Yeah, you might have to borrow money from someone. Yeah, you might have to temporarily make some of these choices that you don't necessarily want to make, but we've gotta remember why we're doing this. Why are we getting divorced? Why are we going through this process, right? That why we're doing it has to be bigger in the moment than we're turning to our credit card because it's the only way we can pay this bill right now. And so I think this is where trauma tends to really show up is that we shame ourselves. Oh, I've got to use my credit card again. Like I know credit card debt is bad. Give yourself a little bit of a break. It's okay. It's not always going to be this way. And so when we can start changing how we emotionally interact with money, even if it feels like, oh, this feels kind of forced on my end, we're able to think clearer about the decisions that we're making. But if we're stuck in the negative, repetitive patterns around how we're thinking about money, we can't we can't make good decisions. We can't see that there's extra money in the bank account.
So let me push back a little bit on that because it's easy to say, let's stop letting money control our emotions. Let's stop feeling the shame. Let's understand why we feel a certain way about the money, and then we can fix it all. But when I'm in the midst of a divorce and I'm overwhelmed, how am I even going to be able to take any action on that?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I really wish there was a crystal ball, magic solution. And, I'm not saying that we wave the magic wand. I say that you actually lean into the emotions. Too often I think that we're trying to push the emotions away, and that's what creates some of the shame, guilt around money. I think it's healthy to feel the emotions that you're going through, and this process is supposed to be hard. A brilliant, mentor of mine said when I was going through divorce, "The only way through it is through it." Right?
Yep.
So you just have to get through it. But I think it's really understanding that money is not an isolated part of our lives. It's connected to everything. It's connected to our career. It's connected to our sleep. It's connected to, our habits, our relationships. Like it's very interconnected in all of these different parts of our lives. So what I'm saying is, why don't we, instead of letting money rule our emotions, why don't we just say, okay, this part's gonna suck. I'm gonna have to make some choices that maybe I don't want to. But let me see, like, can I utilize a friend? Can I utilize some other money coach or expert to help me think clear through this process? There are a lot of pro bono resources. There are a lot of great podcasts like yours that can be a support system through people going through this process. And I think that, if you can just day by day think, okay, what's going on under the surface? What can I actually control today? And what can I not control today? And look at it from that perspective, it starts to be a little less overwhelming.
I love that. So, if we were focusing on healing our relationship with money, what are some of those first baby steps that we could take to make progress on that?
So, the first step is one I already talked about, and that's understanding what your money story is. So, understanding how you were raised around money, the different experiences that you had. But the second part of that is what I call writing your money hero story. So we've already got the past story. We can't change it no matter how much we would like to, right? But what comes in front of us, we actually have some sort of control over that. So I love to have people write the money hero story, which is the version of what is it going to look like going forward? And oh, I actually get to choose. I get to choose how I interact with money. I get to choose what is enough. I get to choose what wealthy looks like. And I get to put my energy and actions towards bringing that to life versus focusing on what has happened. And this is tough. This takes a lot of work and usually some sort of therapy in here because sometimes it's hard to imagine that there's something better on the other side. But again, until we can write it down and see it, we can't get to it, right? So I think that's something that's super important. Again, we talked about the awareness of understanding people, environments, situations where it might elicit some sort of traumatic response from you. And can you do your best to either remove yourself from those situations or give yourself some sort of almost like some sort of pause moment where when you go in those situations, okay, it might be tricky for me to look at my bank account right now. It's going to be okay. I'm just going to look at a quick look. I'm going to give it 5 minutes. And when that 5 minutes up, I'm going to be done. I'm not going to think about it past then. So a lot of the steps to healing from trauma is giving yourself these containers of time to think about money, time for it to be emotional, to honor those emotions and feelings that you have, and then moving on as best as you can throughout the rest of the day.
We talked a little earlier about shame and guilt being such um, common emotions for women to feel. I think in divorce, it is even a bigger deal. I think so many women going through divorce feel shame and guilt about the divorce process, about the fact that their marriage is ending. And then you bring the money shame and guilt into it. There is a lot going on there. How do we begin to overcome the shame and the guilt?
Ooh, I mean, that's the hardest part of this because I think that I know I felt this way, and for many women, you feel like it's my fault. Maybe I should have made a different decision. Financially, I know a lot of women suffer through divorce. I did myself.
Sure.
Um, and so I think that we have to really understand where the shame is coming from. What is the root of the shame? Is it coming from a belief system that was maybe passed down from us? Is it coming from our potentially future ex spouse? Where is that shame coming from? And is there truth to it? Is there actually truth behind that shame? Or is a lot of it what we've just either inherited, what we've picked up in the experience, things where we can find the alternate to it to dismiss this as, no, this is not true. So a lot of women in divorce think, I've lost everything. I'm never going to be able to be good with money. Right? Maybe you didn't handle the money in the relationship and you feel like, I'm never going to be able to do this thing, right? So let's find some instances when you were good with money because I guarantee you, you have plenty of those things you can pull up on memory. We just always tend to go to the negative because that's where our brains like to hang out, right? Because it's comfortable. So let's go to something positive. Oh, yeah. Remember the other day I made like a really good money choice. Yeah. See, I am good with money. And I know some of these things seem silly and incidental, but they really are core pieces of the puzzle of helping you move through this process in a way where, gosh, you don't really want to just curl up in a ball, hold out in the corner.
Well, you brought up something that I hear so often, which is, I'm not good with money. And you might be telling yourself that. Your husband might have been telling you that. And the thing is, it's not that you're not good with money. You may have made some poor money decisions in the past, but guess what? We all do. You can be good with money. You can make good decisions with money. And the goal is to make more good decisions with money than bad decisions, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, you gotta look through those instances when you do make good decisions. Because I'm granted you have 1,000 different instances to choose from. Those are the things I want you to hang your hat on. Those are the things that I want you to remind yourself. I had somebody who came up with all the different times they were really good with money, and they put them on Post-it notes, like, all over their wall. And every day they would read these and say, "No, what? I'm not going to believe that any longer, that I'm not good with money because I have all of these situations when I have been good. This is evidence that I can do this again in the future."
We need to be so much kinder to ourselves than we are. And we need those positive messages to ourselves. The world's going to beat up on us no matter what. Let's not beat up on ourselves.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, so if a woman's going through divorce and feeling a lot of financial stress, again, just trying to pay the rent, put food on the table, maybe coming out of the divorce without a lot of resources, how is she going to get from that place to the place where she is really thriving financially? Because that mentally seems like such a big leap.
It is a big leap, and I think, there aren't a lot of magic solutions when it comes to money, right? We either have to earn more money or we have to spend less money. And usually those are two tough things to do. Sometimes there's not any way we can spend less money. But I think when we go back to the principles of really understanding where your money's going, this is a process that nobody likes to do, but I want you to become the CEO of your money. I want you to look at where your money is going and start making some intentional decisions with, okay, maybe there's a better way I can do this. And I think the second thing I want you to do is find a friend, find a support group, find somebody to talk with because money
Yes.
hides in the shadows, right? Money shame lives there. And so if we can talk about it and we can have somebody support us, it doesn't automatically make money fall from the sky, but it relieves some of that stress because we feel like we have a teammate or a partner or somebody there to emotionally support us during the process.
Okay, let's wrap things up by talking about your brand new book, Unraveling Your Relationship with Money. I know that in the book, you have a 3 step process that could really help divorcing women. Tell me a little bit about that.
The three-step process is something I've developed for many, many years, and it's my take on creating a financial plan that feels better. And it's my heal, plan, build system. So the first step is a lot of what we're talking about in this conversation is what do I want my relationship to be with money? What is my money hero story? What are the areas that I need to heal around money emotionally? So then when I get to creating a plan for what I really want, I can actually bring those actions to fruition. So I want to encourage you to dream again. I want to encourage you to think beyond your situation. What are the goals that you want to achieve? Give it the next month. You don't even have to look out farther than that, right? That's part of the plan phase. And then the build phase is how do we bring that to life? That starts with knowing where our money's going, really having a firm grasp on where our money's going, how we're spending our money. And from there, looking for opportunities. Okay, can I start to invest a little bit? Can I start to maybe sock away 25 bucks in an emergency fund? What are some of the simple little things that I can do that start changing the trajectory of my money and ultimately being able to build wealth? So we have to start small first, but it's those 3 steps that I think are really important.
I love the idea of small wins because they encourage us. And I love a 3 step process because it's one thing for us to sit here and talk today about healing that money trauma and getting financially free and having more wealth. But people need a process. And so I'm going to encourage everyone to pick up a copy of Unraveling Your Relationship with Money on sale starting this week. And you're going to get that heal, plan, build process in there. What else do we want to know about the book?
Oh, the book is my love letter to everyone who reads it. my story with complete authenticity. It's other people's stories. There are reflection questions and action steps and really good information there, I think, to help you feel like you're not alone. You're not alone in whatever situation you're in. And emotionally, let's do it together and let's find a better way to build wealth.
I love that. Shannah, thank you so much for being here. We're going to put a link to the book in the show notes. It has been wonderful talking with you.
Thanks so much for having me.